All right, let's jump right into a big question. We tend to talk about the fetus, the infant, the mother, and the father like they're four separate people, right? Four totally distinct roles. But what if I told you it's not that simple? What if they can't really be separated at all? So you've got the fetus, the infant, the mother, and the father. At a glance, they look like four different pieces of a puzzle. It seems easy enough to just snip them apart and look at each one individually. But is that what's really going on? Can these four lives, these four experiences, truly be separated from each other? Now, to be fair, there's a good reason we're so used to thinking of them as separate. It helps make things simpler, especially when you're talking about medicine and research. On one hand, you've got the research view. It makes a lot of sense. You have fields like obstetrics that focus on the mother and fetus, then you have pediatrics, which looks at the infant, and the separation is super useful. It helps doctors diagnose and treat things effectively. But then there's the real-life view. And in real life, a fetus's growth is completely tied to the mother's environment. An infant's development is shaped by its caregivers, and the parent's well-being, that depends entirely on their support for each other. It's all one big, deeply connected system. And that brings us to a really big idea here. If we want to truly understand this family unit, we have to stop seeing it as a collection of still photos and start seeing it for what it is, a continuous story. Think about it. Life isn't just a series of disconnected chapters. Conception flows into pregnancy, which leads to childbirth, which kicks off infancy. A fetus doesn't just wake up one day and decide to be an infant. It's a transformation. And that infant certainly doesn't just break free from the influence of its parents. There is this powerful, unbroken chain connecting all of them. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Life is not a series of sliced photographs, but a continuously playing movie. If you only look at one frame, sure, you'll see one part of the picture. But if you want to get the plot, if you want to understand the story, you have to watch the movie. You have to see how all the pieces interact over time. Here's another way to look at it that I think is pretty cool. Imagine the family is a tree. The fetus and the infant, they're the fruit. The mother is like the branches and the trunk, right? Directly holding and feeding them. But what about the father? He's the roots, anchoring the whole thing and providing stability. And the family environment, that's the soil. You can't possibly understand why the fruit is the way it is without looking at the branches, the roots, and the soil it all grew from. They look different, but they are all part of the same tree. So if this system is so interconnected, where are the gaps in how we usually think about it? Let's talk about the connections we almost always forget, the ones that keep us from seeing the complete picture. And get this is a really stunning finding from the research. While we have entire fields dedicated to the mother and child, there is no single medical discipline that focuses on the father's relationship with the fetus, the infant, and the mother. It's a huge blind spot in our understanding. See, the father isn't just the guy who provided half the genetic material and then stands on the sidelines. His role is absolutely foundational. His emotional stability, the support he gives the family, how involved he is in caregiving, and the quality of his relationship with the mother, all of these things have a massive impact on the entire system. So, including the father isn't just expanding the topic for the sake of it, it's about actually completing the system. And it's the exact same story for the mother. She is not an isolated island carrying all of this weight by herself. Her physical health, her stress levels, her relationships, her social support, all of it directly impacts the pregnancy and how her child develops, which means we simply cannot place all the responsibility on the mother alone. So, how do we start putting all these pieces together in a way that makes sense? Well, there's actually a new field of life science that gives us a name and a structure for this whole new way of seeing things. It's called phimpology. Phimpology sounds a bit technical, I know, but the idea is actually super simple. The name itself is just a mashup. F for fetus, I for infant, M for maternal, and P for paternal. It's the science that studies the deep, connected relationships between all four of them, not as separate parts, but as one whole system. So how does this framework actually map everything out? Well, it all boils down to six key connections that tie everything together. Okay, so this framework shows us 6 relationships that are all bidirectional, meaning they're all a two-way street. Influence goes in both directions. First, you've got the mother's relationship with the fetus, and then with the infant. And of course, there's that continuous link between the fetus and the infant. But now we complete the picture. We add the father's relationship with the fetus, his connection to the infant, and finally, that absolutely critical link between the father and the mother, which holds the whole thing up. When you see it all laid out like this, you finally start to get just how complex and connected this family unit really is. And this isn't just some static diagram on a slide. These 6 connections form a continuous, dynamic cycle. It's an evolutionary process, really, because today's infants are tomorrow's mothers and fathers. The well-being of one generation literally builds the foundation for the next. The cycle just keeps on turning. So we're back where we started. Treating the fetus, infant, mother, and father as separate pieces might be a handy tool for research, but it is not the final word on the reality of life. The real picture is one of deep, unbreakable connection. And that leaves us with a really important final question. What blind spots has this habit of separation created in our modern approach to family health and medicine?